Andrew McGahon for SevereMMA.com here in Premier Sports HQ in Dublin, sitting alongside Rhys McKee, who is 2.5 weeks away from potentially, you can't even really say it's the biggest fight of your career. I think it might be considered the biggest fight of your career, but you've already kind of got to the place where a lot of people want to get to. But now maybe just this one seems like there's more stakes. A lot of people think that this could be the one that will get you back to that big show. Do you consider it the biggest?
Yeah, you know, I kind of consider every fight is the biggest of my career, and I know that's really cliche and we're selling the fight, of course, but I think this is the biggest, you know, based on where we've come back from, you know, what's next, who it is, where it is, you know, yeah, it's the biggest.
Because I am out of the game, we're going to break character here for a second, right? I get a lot of abuse from the SevereMMA people, so I'm just going to turn this audio up a tiny bit just in case, and we'll just keep it going like the seamless professional that I am. Tell me this, the reaction from that last fight, that was the last big mixed martial arts card that I was at. We were at Bellator as well, but in terms of the atmosphere of the last Bellator event, it seemed a little bit subdued compared to what was created in the SSE that night. Was that like a long hangover? Did you have a dump in motivation or anything after that, after realising that this had happened and then a call didn't come straight away after it?
Not at all. Like, to be honest, like I you know, I was really happy after that fight. I'm still happy after that fight. I got everything I wanted from that fight, and I knew that's how it was going to go. So it was all very much like an expected feeling. How it went and all the crowd and stuff, it was amazing. But there was no like disappointment with the UFC. I knew it could come. I knew it might. We had discussions. It just wasn't the time, and I was totally fine with that. Like, you've known me long enough. I'm not one of them guys that's bitter about stuff. I'm not the type of guy that'll, you know, not do anything because they haven't called. It's back on the horse, back to training, and you know, rack up another win.
Having had the experience of going into the UFC on short notice, do you think that any time spent outside of the UFC now, being able to upskill and get better, is positive? Like, were you able to turn that negative potentially into a positive and realise that I can get another X amount of months training, I can get another hard fight, I can get fight in Dublin now in the 3 arena? Do you know, like, for you, this particular arena, it's kind of nice in a full circle way. Your pro debut came in this arena.
People don't even realise the story I have, and I haven't even, like, I probably wouldn't even have time to open it up, and like, there's a lot of like coincidences and, you know, full circles that have been done. Like you said, pro debut was made in this arena against a veteran. Like, we're coming back 17 pro fights later, this is number 18, to defend the world title in the same arena. Like, there's fairy tales and stories being wrote here, and yeah, like, I think my advice to a lot of fighters nowadays talking about the UFC is like just be as ready as you can, you know. And I'm not saying I wasn't ready, because I believe I was, but for me to have the chance to go back, test myself 3 more times come April 29th, like, that is like, it's very hard to test yourself in the UFC. It's very hard to upskill when you're in the UFC, much harder than it is outside of it. So I'm so like happy and kind of grateful that happened, and like, I am 10 times the fighter I was, and when I fought Chimaev, 100% more than 10. So I'm very grateful that happened.
Out of curiosity, what can you remember about the morning or the day of your pro debut? Because I can remember domestically people were thinking, like, yourself and Mark both turning pro after having good amateur runs, good careers and stuff like that. It ended up being a perfect situation, but correct me if I'm wrong, you were still actively fighting at 145 as an amateur by then. You went up to 170 for your pro debut. Can you remember anything of the day or anything of the occasion?
You know what, I remember going to the weigh-ins and gunning a 2-litre River Rock bottle of water, trying to make 170 in the scales, and I think when it came to the scales I got to 167, which shows you the way that I was walking. I was gunning this 2-litre bottle of water, just trying to make it sit in me. But I remember just smiling and just knowing, you know, when you know something that nobody else knows but you know it, like kind of the same smile I probably am wearing right now. And with this fight, it's like I just knew that it was going to happen, and I just knew I was made for them big nights. And to have that arena, you know, where most kids would crumble, I was watching this being like, this is exactly what I was made for. And, you know, didn't feel stressed one bit. Like, you know, when I seen John Redmond, I knew I was going to beat him that night.
Jimmy's resurgence has been quite a nice story in terms of being able to put wins together, the manner and how he won or claimed the interim title as such. What is it that you thought was, like, I don't want to say appealing or motivating towards you for this, but judging at the level, like, is it that it's a name domestically, a veteran with a lot of records, prior UFC and big organisation experience, but I feel like you've had potentially harder tests in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I can't disagree. I agree with everything you've said. I think when it came to Jimmy, it was, how he's regarded in the community. Like, people, you say Jimmy Wallhead, and people say, oh, flip, like Jimmy Wallhead, and you're like, you reassure them, yeah, that's the guy, and that's kind of what I need. I need the name and the brass that the UFC will recognise the name, and all these other promotions, he's been there, he's done that. So yeah, it was the name. It was him or Pedersoli for me. Were the only two that had the big show brass. And when you come out of the UFC, you have a target in your head, like the same way prior to the UFC, I was looking for people that have already been there. That's who I wanted, and I had that. So it's very dangerous for me to fight guys that don't really maybe deserve the fight just yet. So, and when you have someone else kind of with the same status, and it was Jimmy or Carlos, and Jimmy's the one that got it done. So that's kind of why it appealed to me. That's it.
Is there anything from watching his last couple of fights that you may think there's something that you're not going into any fight thinking that it's going to be an easy fight, and we're not trying to imply that at all? If you're to mark out anything or give a prediction, where do you think, if he is to do any danger or be dangerous, where will it be?
I think Jimmy's dangerous in the first 2 minutes, if I'm being totally honest. I think, that first round, he's hot, he's on fire, he comes out heavy. We definitely know that's the most dangerous time. As for exploiting it, I just believe everywhere. I just believe him better, Andrew, and that is really it. I don't believe he has enough to finish me in the first 2 minutes or the first round or the 5 rounds. I just believe him better, and that's just going to be something I'm just going to have to show, and I'm totally okay with that.
And just to throw one thing back to the Belfast night, when people watch fights like that and we see them maybe at a different time, from an outside perspective, you can say something like, that could take a bit off somebody's career, or you could say that's going to build them mentally tougher than they've ever been before because they've gone through a fire. I know you went straight away to get your leg checked and scanned after it. Was it banjaxed? Was it like bollocksed afterwards? Or do you feel like that's the next level of your mental capacity upgraded now as a fighter from having gone through that?
Yeah, next level for sure. Like, even in there, not to talk bad on Justin, but I just knew after that first round, like, there's nothing more heartbreaking than emptying the tank and someone to finish, the referee about to stop the fight, and then it's the end of the round. And I remember standing up and saying to Justin, that's one done, that's one round done. Like, we have 4 more to go. And I just knew I was growing mentally every second of that fight so much stronger, and I just knew I was going to win. Like, and as bad as it was going in the first bits of the second, I just knew like I would be leaving with the win. So mentality is something I've always had on my strength, and it's only got stronger since. So
very good. Last 2 things, right? I'm a big fan of what's happening up the north at the minute. You are training quite a lot in Fight Academy Ireland. There's a huge breakout of professionals coming from Fight Academy Ireland at the minute. Joe McColgan was one of the first to lead the way. Paul Hughes is the man who's right behind that now. But you have a lot more of a variety of training partners by cross-training at the minute than you did earlier on in your pro career. Can you speak to the benefit of that and how it has helped you in the last couple of fights and how it will help you in this one?
Yeah, you have this arsenal of training partners that want to help. You can pick and choose who you need. Like, I'm able to pick body shapes, I'm able to pick styles, people that have a good this shot or that shot or this takedown. I can pick them and bring them in, and they're my sparring partners. If you are segregating yourself to one club, you're genuinely skipping a beat. Like, if you're not cross training at this point in your career, especially the level of stakes in this fight, why would you not be going out and like getting bodies and styles that are similar? So anybody that's not doing it has to really consider it. It's not an egotistical thing about protecting your own club. Loyalty is much more than staying in the 4 walls. Like, you have to be pushing yourself in your career, and loyalties are loyalties. Everybody wants to get better and improve. So,
small prediction, yourself and Paul Hughes to fight in July in London. What do you think? It just seems so, like, of course, like, it doesn't seem like, it wouldn't even surprise me at all. Yeah, me and Paul have talked about that moment for a long time, and I always said when I left the UFC that me and Paul would debut in the same card, like second debut for me, first for him, and yeah, July in London sounds good. There we go. And then I believe you still do this in regards to interviews, even though I believe you were my last interview that I did as well last year. How is it going to happen, and what is the outcome that Rhys McKee is envisioning? The outcome that I can see is, as always, it's a nice finish. But I am really prepared for 5 rounds of domination this time. It has to be clinical. It has to be a performance. It has to be stuff that I want people to leave at the start of the 5th round knowing that it's wrapped up.
that's kind of the vibe I want to bring in this fight. I just want people being like, there's nothing else for this kid to do. He has completed this division twice, and it's time for him to piss off.
18 fights ago, this man made his professional debut in the same arena, R.I.P. Bama, against John Redmond. 2.5 weeks' time, against a veteran of UK mixed martial arts, Rhys McKee attempts to put a signed, sealed and delivered stamp on his return to the UFC. Good to see you again. Good man.